You know those stories that nobody tells until they're older, until they've lived enough to finally say, all right, here's what really happened. Well, imagine being the last legend standing from your own family band, with memories piling up and secrets you've carried for decades. Now picture being Barry Gibb, yes, that Barry Gibb, the unmistakable falsetto from the Bee Gees, finally sitting down, at 78, ready to spill the truth about John Lennon. Yeah, you heard that right. Barry Gibb, John Lennon, and a history nobody ever really explained, until now. So let's rewind. Barry Allen Crompton Gibb didn't grow up with silver spoons or celebrity handshakes. He was born in the grey chill of September 1946 on the Isle of Man, a tiny place that, let's be honest, most people can't even find on a map. His family wasn't rolling in cash or connections. They moved a lot, always chasing the next chance. First Manchester, England, think brick houses and rainy afternoons. Then a giant leap across the world to Redcliffe, Queensland, Australia. If you're picturing palm trees and easy living, slow down. The Gibbs were just hustling to get by, dragging their record collection from one rented flat to another. But here's the thing, the Gibb kids had something different. Music. Barry, Robin, Maurice, they were a triple threat, scribbling lyrics in school notebooks, harmonizing in the kitchen, even inventing their own band names before they could really play their instruments. It's like the universe just flicked a switch. These guys, they're gonna change music. Barry especially was obsessed with melody. By his teens, he'd already written enough songs to fill a jukebox, and when his brothers jumped in, the sound that happened was pure lightning in a bottle. Let's talk about that sound for a second. It's easy now to joke about disco balls and platform shoes, but when you listen to Stayin' Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, or Night Fever, there's something timeless about them. Barry's falsetto, it's a voice that goes straight to your gut. You either want to dance or cry, sometimes both. But here's what people forget, Barry wasn't just singing. He was writing almost everything, arranging harmonies, producing tracks, making sure every note hit the mark. He even wrote for legends like Barbra Streisand and Dolly Parton. That's Islands in the Stream? Yeah, that's Barry behind the scenes, making magic with a pen and guitar. But even when the hits started rolling in, life wasn't all glitter and Grammy Awards. Barry's story is proof that fame comes with a price. The Bee Gees weren't always on top. There were awkward interviews, tours that flopped, songs that barely cracked the charts. Then came the disco explosion of the late 70s, the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack, millions of albums flying off the shelves, fans screaming from New York to Tokyo. For a few years, the Bee Gees were the hottest thing on the planet. Barry was suddenly everywhere, TV, radio, magazines, even soundtracking the parties of people who'd never heard of the Isle of Man. And yet, here's where real life sneaks in. Barry had already seen how fame could twist people up. He watched his brothers Andy, Maurice, and Robin each struggle in different ways. Andy, the baby of the family, was gone by 30, addiction, heartbreak, the whole tragic package. Maurice died in 2003, Robin in 2012. It's hard to even imagine, Barry was suddenly the only Gibb brother left, carrying not just the family name, but decades of shared songs, heartbreaks, and inside jokes that only the three of them ever truly understood. Most people, after that kind of loss, would just step back, disappear. Barry didn't. Instead, he poured his grief into music. His solo album In the Now came out decades after the disco heyday, and it's heavy with the weight of being the last man standing. You can hear the ache, but also the hope. Because for Barry, music was never about cashing in, it was about survival, about staying connected to the ones he lost. But there's another side to Barry that gets overlooked. Through it all, fame, loss, constant reinvention, Barry always kept family front and center. His first marriage to Maureen Bates was a whirlwind, young and hopeful, but it couldn't withstand the madness of rising fame. They split, amicably, after just a few years. That might have been the end of Barry's story as a family man. But fate had other ideas. One night, while taping a TV show in London, Barry locked eyes with Linda Gray, a Scottish beauty, quiet but with a spark of mischief. Sparks flew, hearts raced, and before anyone knew it, they'd tied the knot on Barry's 24th birthday. This time, it stuck. 5 kids, countless grandkids, and more than 50 years together. No drama, no scandals, just rock-solid partnership. In an industry famous for quick divorces and explosive gossip, Barry and Linda are a rare example that love can outlast the headlines. Even as the family grew, Barry never really put down roots in one place. He moved to the US in the 70s, chasing new opportunities and, probably, a bit of peace from the British tabloid circus. The Gibbs became American citizens but kept their British passports, straddling 2 worlds. At one point, Barry bought Johnny Cash's old house in Tennessee. Imagine writing songs where the man in black once lived. Tragically, the place burned down during renovations, but Barry's dream of turning it into a creative haven never left him. Now, let's circle back to what you came for, the Beatles connection. If you know anything about music history, you know the Beatles were basically the sun around which the 60s music world revolved. Everyone else, Rolling Stones, Kinks, Who, and, yes, the Bee Gees, were orbiting that giant gravitational force. Barry and his brothers idolized the Beatles from day one. When Barry first heard Please Please Me and She Loves You, it wasn't just new music. It was a thunderclap, a sign that anything was possible if you had enough nerve and a little luck. But here's the twist, for all their fame, the Bee Gees always felt a little bit like outsiders compared to the Beatles. Maybe it was the timing, maybe it was the fact they were brothers, maybe it was just their style. But that respect was always there. When Barry finally met John Lennon in person, at a crowded music industry party in London, late 60s, you'd think sparks would fly, or egos would clash. Instead, Barry remembers being nervous as hell, and Lennon, instead of being snarky, just smiled and made a joke. There was a warmth there that caught Barry off guard. John Lennon, of course, was famous for his sharp tongue and sometimes brutal honesty. He didn't hold back. Sometimes he'd say things in interviews that cut deep. He once threw shade at the Bee Gees on the radio, and it stung. But Barry never saw those jabs as real malice. In fact, years later, he realized Lennon was fighting his own demons, his own doubts. Lennon could be cutting, sure, but underneath was someone just as vulnerable as anyone. Barry says now he's got nothing but sympathy for John, a guy who wanted to change the world, but sometimes didn't know how to protect himself from it. And get this, despite whatever Lennon said in public, behind the scenes he respected the Bee Gees' talent. Barry found out years later, through friends, that Lennon admired their ability to write hits that stuck with people. Maybe he even envied their family bond. It's one of those weird, unspoken understandings between artists. You don't have to be best friends to recognize greatness in each other. Then came the day nobody wants to remember, December 1980. Barry was in Miami, probably working on yet another song, when he heard the news: John Lennon had been shot in New York. There are moments that just freeze in your mind, and for Barry, that was one of them. He didn't just lose a peer. He lost someone who had set the bar, who had dared to be honest, angry, hopeful, sometimes all at once. Barry says he cried, not just for Lennon's family but for everyone who saw Lennon as a symbol of truth and possibility. It was like the world got a little colder that night. After all those years, Barry finally feels ready to talk honestly about what Lennon meant to him, not as a myth or a rival, but as a man. He says Lennon was one of the greatest thinkers of his time. Brilliant, sure, but also messy and vulnerable and human. That honesty, the willingness to say exactly what he thought, no matter who liked it, inspired Barry in ways he didn't even see at the time. There's this one lesson Barry took to heart: stop trying to please everyone. Lennon taught him that music only matters if it's real, if it's coming from your own gut, your own story. That's why Barry kept making music, even when it would have been easier to just fade out. He had something to say, and he wanted it to be true. If you've made it this far, here's the real kicker: legends aren't made in a vacuum. Every superstar you can name, Lennon, Gibb, whoever, they're all shaped by the people they admire, the challenges they face, and the losses they endure. Barry Gibb's journey isn't just about flashy suits, screaming crowds, or even heartbreak. It's about sticking to what matters, learning from pain, and honoring the people who helped you become who you are, even if you only met them a handful of times. So, next time you hear a Bee Gees song, think about everything that went into it, the laughter, the late-night writing sessions, the family drama, the musical rivalries, and yes, the deep, unspoken respect between artists. Barry Gibb isn't just a disco icon. He's living proof that even after loss, love and honesty can keep the music playing. Hey, if this story hit you right in the feels, or made you look at your favorite songs a little differently, let me know in the comments. Got a Bee Gees or Beatles memory you want to share? Drop it below. And don't forget, if you want more real talk, more untold stories, and more reasons to believe in the power of music, hit that subscribe button and stick around. Thanks for being here, and remember, legends never really say goodbye. They just turn up the volume and keep the world dancing.